Yes, you're clicking on this video and you're wondering, Fit Foodie, how are you going to compare Obsession to 500 Days of Summer? And let me tell you something.
Let me tell you something. I'm gonna tell you a few things. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something else, man.
Today, I'm going to take you down the rabbit hole of what goes on in my brain, how 500 Days of Summer gives insight to what is possessing Nikki in Obsession. Follow me. Come down this rabbit hole with me. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, welcome to Fit Foodie Film Takes with your host, your girl, Fit Foodie. And yes, again, we are going to be talking about Obsession. I know I already did an Obsession video. Thank you guys for watching that video. I talked about, when I originally discussed it, specifically about how trash Nikki's friend group is, the friend group in general. And it's funny, one comment, and I'll post it here, was talking about how they were doomed from the start as a friend group. Now, did it have to go down this path because of Bear? No. However, this friend group was trash. It was only a matter of time for it to blow up in any meaningful way. Bear just made it worse by making a horrible wish. For those who have not watched Obsession or 500 Days of Summer, I am going to be putting in a whole bunch of spoilers to explain my theories on Obsession specifically. So if you haven't watched it, go ahead and leave this video, go watch it or watch a recap and then come back. And again, these are all my personal theories. I have watched some interviews from the Obsessed cast, the director, the writer, and such. I try not to watch too much because I like to formulate my own theories, my own thoughts. However, something just clicked in my head when I was scrolling on YouTube one day and 500 Days of Summer popped up, and I said, oh my gosh, this makes sense. So again, stay with me, walk with me, and let me lead you to my epiphany. Obsession is a 2025 American supernatural horror film written, directed, and edited by Curry Barker. The film follows Bear, Michael Johnston, a music store employee who buys a supernatural toy that grants his wish for his friend Nikki, Andy Navarrete, to fall in love with him, resulting in horrific consequences. Cooper Tomlinson, Megan Lawless, and Andy Richter appear in supporting roles. In the next film, 500 Days of Summer is a 2009 American romantic comedy drama film directed by Mark Webb in his feature directorial debut, written by Scott Neustadter and Michael H. Weber, and produced by Mark Waters. The film stars Jordan Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel as Tom and Summer respectively, and in a nonlinear narrative, Tom chronicles the story of his relationship with Summer. So let's start off with 500 Days of Summer. I watched that movie back in like 2009, 2010, whenever it came out on HBO, you know, back when we had cable. And I was coming from 8th grade going into 9th grade. So very young mindset, watched the film. And I'm not gonna lie, I was mad at Summer. I thought Summer was the antagonist, that she was the villain, that she did Tom wrong because Tom wanted just to give her all this love and wanted to be there for her, and he truly loved her. Like, why couldn't Summer accept that, right? And I know a lot of people felt that way. However, watching that film again a few years ago and then rewatching it for this video, I frontal lobe developed. I've dated, so I know what's up. You know, back in that time, I've never been on a date. Okay, so I didn't know really much about what that involved, but now I have book knowledge and I have street knowledge of how things are supposed to work, and of course that changes. Hopefully that it changes your opinions on things. And come to find out, that's when I learned that just because a protagonist is the protagonist of the film does not mean that they're also not the villain, aka Breaking Bad. Tom did not love Summer. That man was infatuated. That man was in limerence. That man did not know who Summer was, and he was not worthy of Summer. Okay? Summer was the type of person who was ambitious, spontaneous, loved to go out there, a go-getter, do things, independent woman, wanted to build the life of her dreams. And Tom was just not like that. Tom was not that person. Tom was complacent. He was okay with living an average life. He wanted things to fall into his lap. He did not want to go out and do things. And so inherently, they were not on the same track. And I think he liked someone like Summer because he felt like having someone like her in his space made him feel worthy. You know, the power of a woman to a man, it elevates his worth in his mind and also in society in general. And also, essentially, Tom had a fantasy in his mind and had almost a brain rot fantasy of what his love for Summer looked like. And we're also told in the film that this is not the first time he acts this way towards a woman. And I'm sure a previous relationship beforehand, he was the type of person who fell hard, who was in love, who gave his all and was end up brokenhearted and left and depressed and just, oh, woe is me, crybaby type stuff. And because of that, he could never truly experience or see Summer for who she truly was, truly experience her in the way that she deserved, which is why Summer ultimately left. She liked Tom, she appreciated for who he was, but she saw him for who she was, and she knew that's not what she was looking for. You know when you know. And my point in all of this is Tom is so similar to Bear. And the fact that I put these two films together is because I feel like Tom gives a perfect explanation, a deeper dive into the psyche of that kind of person, the nice guy who would do anything for the girl and all he's looking for is love. When that's what they say, but that's not the real truth of what's going on. Because I feel like if you swap Tom and Bear, if Tom was put in the same position of having the, what is it called? The willow? The one wish willow, yeah. Because I feel like if Tom had access to the one wish willow, he would do the exact same thing that Bear did and take autonomy away from Summer. And you know I'm not wrong. He would do that in a second, wouldn't even think about it. He would have Summer be the one that he was in love with and have her with him until the day that they died. So stay with me, I'm getting to my point. And because of this, if we can say that Tom and Bear almost share the same brain, they say they share the same mentality, the same obsessive possession over a woman. I believe that what actually possessed Nikki was not a demon per se. I believe what possessed Nikki in the film was the spirit of Bear's obsession. Because think about it, obsessive thoughts, obsessive feelings, carrying over into a different person. The reason why she was talking about in the very beginning when he first broke the willow, and she talks about, oh, my dead cat, when actually Bear's cat actually passed away. That's because Bear's spirit is inhabiting Nikki's. His bad, dirty, possessive, ugly feelings. That's not love. That's not true love. Is possessing Nikki. So she has his essence inside of her. That's why when they were at the dinner table together and he says, your father didn't really pass, did he? And she's like, no. Why are you ruining what we have going on? Because that's what his obsessive spirit would try to push against anything from the outside interrupting what they have going on. It is the same reason why Nikki ended up killing Sarah. Because if you think for a second, and I had some time to think about this, I feel like if Ian let Bear know that he was hooking up with Nikki the whole entire time, I think Bear would have tried to harm Ian in some type of way. Bear was not the type to fight, be rough and tumble, but he had a side to him that I feel like would try to get back at Ian in some type of way. And when you have that dirty, unfiltered spirit caught up in Nikki, there is no barrier. There is no shame. There is no the extra part of Bear's personality combined. No, it is straight filtered obsession that is possessed inside of her. I truly think that's what happened. And I feel like it explains all the occurrences of her being so in tune and connected with Bear. And I think the weird stuff that she did, like cooking the cat or taking the cat out, any of the weird things that she was doing, that was Nikki fighting back. Nikki was fighting with Bear on a spiritual level inside of her body, but then also fighting Bear in the actual physical, real realm. So Nikki was just going through it. Nikki was going through it. And I feel like understanding the psyche of Tom from 500 Days of Summer explains all of that perfectly, because we have an understanding of Bear, but we don't get a deep dive like how we do in 500 Days of Summer, where he creates this whole fantasy of how he wants things to go in his head versus reality, and him not accepting reality. There is a difference between wanting something to happen and facing reality and accepting it versus denying reality and believing that what you want and what you feel and what you need is more important. And that's exactly what Bear is like. So I hope that made sense to everyone. I really do, because to me, that makes the most sense. To me, it just clicked. I saw Tom and I said, oh my gosh. Tom walks so Bear could run and mess everything up. At least Tom at the end of 500 Days of Summer has some kind of hope for his future. Bear, not a good person. Villain. If you guys agree with me or have any other theories or feel like you have a different person to compare Bear to that also would make sense, please let me know in the comments below. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure you eat well, drink well, rest well, move your body, and until next time, ciao.